What's up, everyone? Welcome to another week of First Seed Fantasy. We're here. It is me, Kyle Krajewski, joined by the beautiful duo, first time this summer, Zach Cole and Mike Del Corso. Guys, what's up? What's up with the two of you?
Nothing
Nothing
much.
new. No, nothing new. Nothing new. This is it. We're here. I'm glad all three of us are finally together.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Go time in August.
Happy to see your two beautiful faces on screen, because today we're running through once again another mock draft, but this time we're focusing on the end of the draft. So we're basically going to team up, the three of us. We're going to pick from pick 12 and kind of chat about the options that arise, that show up at the end of the draft here, and what kind of I guess team structure you can look forward to, and how that kind of looks, basically how the draft board looks when you're picking at the end of the draft. So you kind of get an idea of just which players are showing up where and when, and what to look out for. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, it's really interesting this year. You're going to see that top 7 almost looks automatic at this point in terms of those 7 guys and whatever order they're going to go in. But that back half, 8, and then you could even say all the way going back to 8 in the second round is kind of like that actual first round for most guys that they got to figure out what they're doing. So some interesting picks already here.
So while we're on the clock here, pick 12. Again, I'd like to reiterate, I completely forget to do this every single time before we start the draft, but this is a PPR draft. Team format is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, flex, and 4 bench spots. So just a simple 12 round draft. But we've got, I guess the highlight there is it's PPR and 3 wide receivers. And I mentioned that because we're here at the end here, pick 12 at the turn. And guys, quite honestly, I'm feeling double wide receiver here just because of the few guys that are available here. What are your, I guess, initial thoughts?
I think 2 wide receiver is definitely the way to go. Also, especially when you take a look at the first 4 names that are on the board here at the receiver position, you can see Diggs, Brown, Devontae Adams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love all 4 of them this year. I think that the latter 2 are being slept on a little bit in fantasy drafts, and I think obviously there's a lot of talent in the first round, but I think those guys aren't far from being first round talents either. So personally, I really like those 2, but there's no denying the talent level of Diggs and AJ Brown and what they did last year. I think people are a little sour off of Stephon Diggs simply just because he didn't have as great of a season as he did in 2021, in 2022. But you can still see there he finished up as, let's say, the wide receiver 4 in PPR.
Yeah, in a better year somehow than 2021, but still people feel a little soured on him.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I don't know if it's the relationship between he and Allen, but it's people do seem a little bit just off of Diggs this year, but I don't think that's any reason to shy away from him. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny that he had a better season with Josh Allen's UCL, I believe it was, with his elbow a little bit banged up during the season. But yeah, based off of this draft, I'm kind of leaning the same way you guys are. If you get like those running backs going 8 through 12 there with Barkley, Robinson, and Taylor, I'm probably going to go receiver heavy as well. I would like to, if I drafted in the back end, have one of the receivers out of Lamb, Diggs, Brown, or even Adams. I would like one of them, but if it's going to go running back heavy like that, I would definitely double down. I'm perfectly okay with going Diggs and Brown here back to back.
All right. Yeah, I think we're kind of all in agreement that, especially, I think the highlight for me specifically is this being a 3 wide receiver rather than just a simple 2.
Absolutely.
And that kind of puts a little bit more emphasis on the wide receiver core. So if we get 2 studs here, let's do it. Stephon Diggs in the first round, and then AJ Brown in the second. We've got, I mean, that's a huge, solid anchor on our roster right there. And basically, we can wait on our wide receiver 3, pending who falls or makes it to us at the end of the third.
Right.
But we can kind of feel incredibly comfortable at the wide receiver position, which is healthy.
Yeah, Kyle, I know I've been annoying the hell out of you with all the mock drafts that I send you, but did you guys did it cross your minds at all to go with Patrick Mahomes maybe in that 1-2 turn there, or are you guys staying away from a quarterback that early?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. Me and Kyle, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, we even ran through that scenario of what it would look like if you did go Mahomes in the 1-2 turn. And I really liked the way it turned out. Like it's a good draft to do it, I feel like, because you are seeing some of these RB1s leak into the third round. And I think that's what allows you to do it. Whether your league is like two running backs, two receivers, or 2 and 3, like we're doing, where receivers are valued just a little bit more. Like if you look at Pollard, Stevenson, even Brees Hall off an injury, leaking into the third round, like this would be the year that I would pull the trigger on going quarterback early. So I would absolutely love the idea of starting off with Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm kind of falling in love with that idea too. I feel like Mahomes specifically just feels safe consistently year after year. So to kind of just have that guy any position on your roster where you're just like, yeah, set it, forget it, and I don't even have to look at a ranking for that position for the rest of the year.
Right.
It's just incredibly comforting. So and as Mike said, we did the early quarterback draft a few weeks ago, and it was one of those where we're just like, it's not that bad. So
Yeah.
it's one of those benefits of consistently mocking, because then you get a feel for it, get an idea of what those teams could look like before just diving head first.
Exactly. Interesting pick here, guys. What are you looking at here? Double receiver start.
Yeah, we're sitting here, two receivers, and staring right back at us is the early QB of Joe Burrow, but he's kind of got a calf injury. I think it's still just kind of up in the air. I think there's a lot of optimism with that. So I haven't put too much weight on it yet. I give it a week and then I'll start worrying. Then we see Kenneth Walker to get our first running back. Or we could look at wide receiver 3 here with Debo, Keenan Allen, and then Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon as the running back. And we consistently bang the drum for Calvin Ridley as well.
Yeah.
What are you guys thinking?
I think we just based on who's here and the injury concerns with some of these guys, I think if we can solidify our 3 wide receivers in rounds 1, 2, 3, I think that gives us such a nice, comfortable cushion for the rest of the draft where we can kind of take some upside shots on other kinds of guys. So I personally would like to, in this spot, lean towards either Debo or Keenan Allen or even Calvin Ridley if you want to drop down a little bit. But I think the upside on Debo and Keenan Allen specifically as your wide receiver 3 is just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that is a dangerous way to start the draft for sure, and dangerous in a good way. Just having that 3-headed stack there would be really nice. I
Yeah.
feel like, I don't know if I did go 3 receivers, what would you guys think? Would it be reasonable to do 3 receivers and Burrow, or at that point, what I would be thinking is like 3 receivers and then snag one of those running backs that still does have like that like top 10 value, like that right there, like Aaron Jones, Mixon. You can even look at Kenneth Walker. I know he has a little bit of a nagging injury right now. Personally, that's what I would do. Like if I was going 3 receivers here, 100%, I'd probably snag one of those running backs before it gets too late. But what would you guys think about a Burrow and 3 receiver start here?
It's tricky. I think I'd be I think I'd feel more positive about it if there wasn't a big questionable sign next to him. I'm not worried about it. It's still just one of those. It's an injury, no matter however you slice it. But either way, I think the 3 of us are kind of in agreement that we're taking a receiver, right?
Yeah,
agreed.
Before this 20 seconds runs out, Keenan or Debo? Somebody throw me a name.
Ooh, that's a tough one, man.
Let's go Debo.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, this is a powerhouse trio.
Oh my God, yeah.
And Mike said it's dangerous in a positive way because now we can just be like, all right, cool. Don't have to worry about wide receivers where the rest of these guys are going to be. That's all that's going to be taken right here in these next 3 rounds. But we can just sit pretty and look elsewhere.
Right.
Well, and to Mike's point, I do if come draft time, we're looking at this pick and Joe Burrow, some of the questions are a little bit alleviated. We're getting towards the beginning of September. I kind of like to look at fantasy drafts and in the first couple rounds, really just boil it down to the simple fact of do I have elite players on my team? And I think if you can start a draft with an elite receiver in Diggs, an elite receiver in Brown, an elite receiver in Debo Samuel, and an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow, I think that's an incredible start. And I think this year more than any, I know Mike brought up the concern of going receiver, 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 quarterback and kind of completely punting running back at this point. But I think in this year's draft, more than any, and especially at the end, the later picks, you can almost punt running back until the later rounds. I think there's a lot of nice kind of zero RB type of guys that fall to you. Just in from experience, thinking of guys like David Montgomery, thinking of later rounds like Zach Charbonnet, or just names like that. Even like a Kamara, a James Cook. Yeah, these guys all kind of fall to you in these later rounds at the end of the draft. And I think that if you can fill out your bench with these kind of guys later on, I think it really kind of makes you look back and go, okay, I have a great floor with all of these receivers and this elite quarterback that I took, and now I just need some of these guys to step up and produce. But all of that kind of comes back to the point where Joe Burrow's questionable right now, and I think for the sake of the time that we're doing this draft, and you can see he's walking without a limp, so he could be back to practice next week for all we know. But I think for the sake of our draft, let's just consider it like he probably isn't going to play in the preseason or whatever, and maybe I think we should look somewhere else instead of quarterback right now. Are you guys on board with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those, just before we get off the zero RB train. I think it's a very fine strategy as long as you have the 3 receivers or 3 other positions to kind of back it up.
Yeah, you need a
and
good
you're
core.
not just going in here drafting willy-nilly just because you don't want a running back.
Right. Yeah, no,
I think
I really like that start. If you stack, if say Burrow didn't have that next to his name, and you did want to go kind of with that like zero RB approach, I mean, in terms of points, your team right there.
Golden.
I mean, you're gonna have one of the best teams to start the year as long as everybody's healthy, without a doubt. And to talk about points, like having a top 5 QB and potentially 2 top 10 receivers, maybe a top 15 in
Right.
Debo, like that's a sick start, man. So in terms of points, there's probably nothing to be afraid of there. I'd probably cut the line at Burrow. I know Fields and Herbert are like the next 2 guys there. Burrow is probably where I would do it, but if Burrow goes before, I would not reach for like Fields or Herbert there.
Yeah.
I'd probably just stick RB. But yeah, for the sake of the draft, like you guys said, like if we're counting Burrow out for right now, I think definitely at this point we would probably snag one of those fringe like RB1s that are still hanging around there. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I agree.
kind of eyeing both Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon are kind of the 2 that
Same.
I guess
Those are the 2 that are catching my eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would count out Walker until I see him on the field, just knowing what's going on with him. I would like to see like what's going on first. I mean, right now, I mean, if I had a choice between Aaron Jones and Mixon, I'd probably lean Aaron Jones.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
I was gonna go Aaron Jones just for the point of hasn't had an outside of the
Consistent.
top 10
Yep.
running back
Yep.
since 2018.
And if the
Granted,
argument
he
is
had
that
Aaron Rodgers, but
I was going to say, if the argument's that the offense is going to take a step back without Aaron Rodgers was horrible last year. He just wasn't running that offense, and I don't think there's going to be that big of a discrepancy between what Rodgers did last year and what Jordan Love is going to do this year. So I think Jones is a fine pick in this spot.
absolutely. And we've got our RB1.
Mm-hmm.
And then it makes its way back to us. And oddly enough, I see a handful of running backs I really like. and a QB that I really like. But I'll let you guys kind of chime in where your eyes are going here at the end of the fifth.
Mike, I want to hear your thoughts. Where are you leaning right now?
Yeah, so if I started with a team like this where I know I'm just getting like high ceiling points out of all of my receivers and I'm having a solid RB1 that's going to be pretty damn consistent, here would not be a bad route to get a quarterback. Like, say, like the quarterbacks in this draft kind of were a little bit weird. Like Herbert went in front of Burrow, it looks like, and then Fields was like directly after them or directly after Burrow. I would expect like Herbert and Fields to possibly make it a little bit deeper into the fifth round, depending on your league. So
I think
guys like, go ahead.
the only counter argument I have to that is thinking like a real life draft. Somebody takes the first quarterback after, I guess, the first four. Then everybody else after that is like, wait a minute, I wanted a quarterback or I should get a quarterback. And then they probably do go this early. Like the rankings probably by default don't say that they're going to go right away. But just thinking like how any of our live action are even just in-person drafts go or our real people drafts go, you have that human element of like, wait a minute, I need a quarterback now before they're all gone.
Well,
Right,
and
yeah.
You're still right.
And to that point, I mean, if we look at just going off of the rankings and the ADP here, if we take a look at the quarterbacks, there's a pretty substantial tier break between
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott. I mean, we're talking about 30 picks here, which is about a 3-round discrepancy. Now, you know, like Mike was just talking about, it could be where we see everyone kind of expedite taking a quarterback and everyone just wants to make sure that they have that base covered. But I like Lawrence in this spot. I mean, I'm a big Trevor Lawrence guy this year. I think he's going to take a huge step forward, but I think it provides us with a positional difference maker. I think we're in the same tier as these other 7 quarterbacks that went off the board if we're taking Trevor Lawrence, and meaning that we're in that 1A, 2B type tier of quarterback. So I think one of our picks should probably be Lawrence here. That's just my 2 cents. Of course, if you guys don't agree with that, that's fine. That's why we're drafting as a team, but that's kind of where my mind is at.
Yeah, no, I like that approach. You guys kind of opened my mind up to that a little bit, just thinking about it, because you're right. After Lawrence, there is a significant tier break. And I think Lawrence is going to do light years better than Dak will this year. Being a Cowboys fan myself, I think Dallas like really hones in on the run game this year, and I think their red zone touches are going to go to running backs mainly. So, yeah, I think it is a huge tier break there. Like I said, I think you guys opened my mind on this one. I'm definitely okay with going Lawrence here, just because it's kind of that situation where drafting at the end, you probably are not going to see any quarterback in that top 10 potential from here on out. So you're kind of just like hoping to get lucky with a late round QB strat. So, yeah, I love the Lawrence pick here. And there's some other names on this board as well. Kyle, you mentioned you liked a few here.
I'm going to snag Lawrence here. I think we're all in agreement there. The huge tier break kind of sells me on it because if it's not here, it's down here that we're taking one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm not in love with these guys as much as I am with Lawrence, and it would just make me love this team a lot more.
Yeah.
I think the only name that I'll throw out in there that I haven't really drafted him a lot, but I kind of like the idea of him, and I think he could kind of return to what he was, is Deshaun Watson. I think people forget. I mean, it's been like 3 or 4 years since we've actually seen him play quality football, but way back when, once upon a look at that. We're talking about a guy who was perennially the quarterback 5 in fantasy, and he was just doing incredible things in those games. So I think that there is a world where we get to see. I mean, he's only 27. Like, I mean, shoot, I think is Mahomes 27 too. You know, it feels like Deshaun's been around forever, but I mean, these guys are, they're both 27 years old. You know, so like, I think Watson's still got a lot in the tank. But not to get too far off the point, he's just another guy that I do like if you wait a little bit longer on quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys know me personally. I love my late round QB strategy. So like guys like that is definitely like something I'd keep in mind. And I feel like Lawrence is going with that earlier tier, as we pointed out. So I really like the pick there. I think, like I said, you guys definitely opened my mind up to it. That's probably a great value that you kind of don't want to let slip, especially at 12 when you know you have no shot to get him if you wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, you almost picking late, you kind of have to expect nobody to make it back to you.
Right.
Like we could have even looked at any of these next 4 quarterbacks and been like, there could be a run. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of getting ahead of that curve is kind of the key to drafting at any turn.
Especially in live drafts too, when people get chirping
Yeah.
and and it starts getting on a roll. When you're not drafting against the computer, it can be dangerous. You can see a lot of guys go off the board back to back to back. So
Yep. You see one quarterback go, and then you see the dude in the corner go, oh no, like give a little bit of a reaction, and then everybody starts taking them. So you know the feeling.
All right. Pick 6 or 6th-round pick. What are we eyeing here? I'm eyeing a running back just because I like the few that are floating here, specifically DeAndre Swift, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, if we want to take the dart throw, and Rashad White. I feel like wide receivers, it's kind of a large grouping of tiers from Godwin, maybe down to Deontay. So I just kind of feel safe, not biting on it. And we have 3. So we don't even have to look at the wide receiver column.
What does tight end look like right now, Kyle? Who's the best up?
Dallas Goedert.
I do like me some Goddard this year. I'm a little bit weary about Waller. I don't think it's a bad pick, but yeah, I'd probably go in the running back direction, as you said,
Agreed.
Kyle. Those receivers are kind of all bunched in that tier. There's a ton of them that I'm like, I would like some over the others, but not enough to take them like a full round ahead of ADP. So I kind of like the running backs here. I think I would probably hone in on one of them.
Yeah, let's take a look at running back again.
Got Swift, Dalvin Cook, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Rashad White, and then a wall of questionables.
I wish Dalvin Cook was signed to make this a whole lot easier. As you guys probably saw, he just met with the Jets. And I hope that does not happen. I mean, that would I wouldn't even know how to draft him or Brees Hall at that point. That would be one of the hardest things. And I really hope that does not happen. I don't really think it makes sense for the Jets anyways, unless they're giving like Dalvin Cook a bridge deal, like a 1-year small deal, but I doubt Dalvin's taking that. So, I'd pass him up. The running backs here on this list, I probably am leaning towards. Obviously, Kamara is another one of the guys like Cook that you're going to have to wait until like the last week in August to decide if you actually want to do it or not. So, for those purposes, for right now, I would leave them out of the conversation. Probably the running back I'd go here is James Conner. I just kind of like the position he's in. I don't think that football team is going to be very good this year, but knowing what's going on with James and that he's really the only guy there at this point, I kind of like his position. And based off of volume alone, I think he'll have like a RB2 kind of floor. So I kind of like him there.
All right,
you guys.
Just because we were running out of time here. Let's go Connor.
Sounds good.
I'm not going to argue with that. On that running back list that kind of like makes you like not want to miss out on them? Because for me, it kind of isn't. But
yeah, I'm not itching to draft any of these guys. But it's one of those, I like them. They're guys that I'm, I guess, targeting in this range, especially with a 0 RB build, or at least a later RB pick. I think like the 4 of them, Swift, Connor, Kamara, White, and then sometimes I feel lucky. I try to get lucky with Dalvin Cook. It's kind of like I like them, but I'm not like targeting them, if that makes sense.
I think I think Swift is the home run shot out of this group. I think he's got the potential to just be really, really good or really, really bad, depending on how Sirianni decides to use him in that Eagles offense this year. I mean, we've seen different variations of Miles Sanders over the last couple of years. So I think he's kind of the home run shot. We've definitely seen the athleticism with him, but I agree. I think that the volume is safest with James Conner. I think he's our pick here.
Yeah. And I agree as well. Swift for me is like I'm a huge Swift fan. I loved him the past 2 years. Like you said, it's kind of comes down to usage, and that's a hard guessing game
Yeah.
to get at, especially when a guy's on a new team at the running back position where the quarterback scores most of the rushing touchdowns. Um, but yeah, Kyle, if you don't mind, quick, can you just pop up Miles Sanders? What was his finish last year? Just curious.
Yes. Last year he was the RB15.
15. Interesting. See, it's hard to say if Swift is going to see the same type of volume with the addition of Rashad Penny. Um, but if he does, I mean, I kind of like him again, right in that James Conner range where maybe his floor is like an RB2, at very worst RB24. So I kind of like the situation there. But yeah, if we're going receiver heavy with a smash quarterback pick, great value there. I like Connor there. I'm not regretting it. But on to the
I think
next one here.
I think not to dwell on the point here. I think what really kind of capped Miles Sanders, and I don't know whether it was him or whether it was just Sirianni's running back usage, but he didn't get a lot of receptions in the Eagles offense. I mean, he only had 20 catches last year, which is kind of
Hmm.
I think what holds him down, especially in like a PPR format like this. But we saw last year Swift actually had. I mean, he missed a couple games, and last year he still ended up with 48 receptions. So you're looking at 28 more fantasy points. He had about 2 times the targets um, that Sanders did last year. So like I said, I don't know if Sirianni prefers to give those targets to guys like Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, who are still in the mix in Philadelphia, or whether it was just a matter of Sanders not being as capable as he wanted him to be in the pass catching game. So like I think that kind of plays a big role in what we expect out of Swift this year, and I think as silly as it sounds, I think we're going to kind of need to wait and see on it, and maybe he'll be one of our top trade for candidates if we're seeing him
Yeah.
come out and get 5 targets, 6 targets in that first game.
Yeah, no, 100%. And now that you mention it as well, I'm not trying to add on, but it also is a contract year for Swift now.
Right?
So that, as we saw with like guys like Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, like definitely plays a part in these running backs and what they're gonna do. So just something to look out for. But
Definitely.
Back here with the 7th round, end of the 7th. Before we get into, I guess, other options, part of me is really leaning tight end right here.
Agreed.
More specifically, Evan Ingram, Pat
Agreed.
Frymuth, and
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
partially Njoku.
I think we can't even bat an eye. I think we have to go Ingram here just to have that
Agreed.
stack.
Yep.
I do like Fryermuth a lot this year, but I
Mhm.
think if you have that possibility of a stack, you just don't pass that. You're getting a stud tight end. Um, I think that's a smash pick right there.
I was
That
actually
is
going to bring that
easy.
up before our last pick when we took a peek at the running back list or at the tight end list. I'm sorry, and there was a pretty big gap between Waller and Goddard, and then it was Evan Ingram, and I was hoping that maybe Ingram would make his way back to us, and it worked out beautifully. But that's a hell of a stack, the two of them together, because on those weeks when we see Evan Ingram just take a game over and have 15 catches or however the hell many catches he has.
I
Uh
broke the screen just trying
oh.
to look at Evan Ingram's player card.
I think if you just refresh, you should be in business, Kyle.
Here we go.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, I mean when you just take a I don't know what happened again. I guess we're out on player cards for right now.
All right. No player cards.
But anyway, to the point that I was making, we saw Evan Ingram have that 130-some PPR point game last year, and if you can get Ingram and Lawrence on the same team when that kind of thing happens, you win your week. There's no denying it. You win your week. So I think a stack is a beautiful thing at this point.
Yeah, that's a 6 star, man. You got a QB tight end stack that the team is just on the up and up, getting better every year. They just added a new addition in Ridley. We got 2 solid volume based running backs that really are just going to be consistent. and then those smash receivers. So here I'd probably look to either take like a nice receiver here with a lot of value, or I'd
Mhm.
probably protect my backfield here. What are
I
you
was
guys?
thinking the same. I'm kind of, I guess, more specifically in the running back room. I see James Cook or a handcuff to Jones and AJ Dillon, or we look at Deontay, Pickens, or Dotson.
Hmm. Deontay and Pickens. That has not changed since like the end of June, if I'm correct. That's going to be a hard one to pick between. But if you do add 4 touchdowns to Deontay Johnson last year, he shoots up a bunch in the rankings instead of wide receiver 30. He's a
I think you just
wide
add
receiver.
one touchdown. I think you went from, I think the total is like from wide receiver 30 to like 22.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's ridiculous. And I'd bet any amount of money to say that Deontay Johnson's gonna at least have 1 touchdown this year. So, um, yeah, I don't know why they're so close. I understand Pickens, but per PFF last year, Pickens did not have a great grade, wide receiver grade in separation, which kind of scares me. I feel like for as of right now, he's just going to be that big play receiver, kind of like mini Gabe Davis, where he's not going to have a lot of volume, but he's going to do some crazy stuff some games, and some games you're going to want him in the lineup. But yeah, that conversation I probably wouldn't even bat an eye. I'd lean Deontay. I don't know why they're so close, but yeah, running back or receiver here, I'd be totally comfortable. What are you thinking, Zach?
I think first off, what you said was spot on. I was actually just thinking the same thing, and I was going to mention that. I think we're going to see this guy as a big play receiver, kind of the Chase Claypool type of guy. I don't even know, the guy that at the end of the season has like 95 targets and only 45 receptions because they're throwing the ball deep and they're trying to get him out in space. The day that we're recording this today is Tuesday, August 1st. There was a video that came out on Twitter of him actually going up for a
Oh,
catch
it was incredible.
over top of Joey Porter. But Mike, that just spoke to your point though. There was no separation on that route. He had to make
Yep.
a spectacular catch because there was no separation. So to me, that doesn't really show that there's a high ceiling for Pickens. And I think Deontay Johnson having 0 touchdowns was a complete and utter fluke last year. And I think he's going to find the end zone again. Kenny Pickett should improve in the offense this year. Everything should be better in Pittsburgh offensively this year. And I think that is probably going to help Deontay Johnson kind of outperform his current ADP. So to me, I think he's the pick. I think if we looked running back, I think James Cook is a great pick. I wouldn't go handcuff when there's still a clear cut
Yeah,
starter on the board at this point. But I totally
right.
understand the case for it with having Aaron Jones, who inevitably does seem to get hurt for 1 or 2 games every single year. But I think having a starter that gives you higher ceiling. So if we were to go running back, I would say Cook. If we're going to go receiver, I would say Deontay.
Hmm. I love it.
I made the executive decision, went Deontay. I
Nice.
know we were kind of all in agreement there.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry. Let
mean,
me put my auto draft back on. There we go.
I didn't get to speak my piece, but I think Deontay uh, has. Geez, I am hearing this in my brain right now. Sorry, the draft board was making its clicking noise, and I forgot to turn it off. I think Deontay Johnson has a very real possibility of just launching over his ADP currently. And
Mhm.
worst case scenario, you're drafting him at his floor. And that's not that bad, especially for us here. He's our wide receiver 4 or our flex player. And I think that's an easy choice for me. And now
Yeah,
we are back on the clock, 9th round. We have just about our entire starting roster built. We've got 4 wide receivers, 2 running backs, tight end, and quarterback. So I don't want to say we have any needs. I think we're kind of desiring an extra running back, but again,
Mhm.
I'm not itching. Um, I'm not. I think we can wait. Personally, I think we can wait until the next turn.
right.
But that's my opinion. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on, I guess, just running backs or what we're targeting at the turn here.
Yeah, I'd be thinking the same thing. At this point, like Zach mentioned, there was one starting running back left with James Cook, and after that, you're kind of in handcuff territory here. So unless
Khalil
you have
Herbert would
like
have
a
been the only other
specific
one.
Khalil Herbert as well. Yeah, my bad. He's another one there. So really, unless you have like an itch for one of these handcuffs that you're absolutely high on, I'd probably wait a little bit longer, especially if it's just two running backs. And I'd probably look to add some depth at receiver again here, if possible. But yeah, unless your league in front of you is like going heavy running backs and everybody's kind of jumping on handcuffs and snagging them, then I'd be a little bit worried with maybe just two running backs. But in this case, I don't think we're missing out on any gold here. I think basically they're all going to be a shot in the dark for the most part, and you're going to have to get lucky. So I have no problem waiting on running back again.
Kyle, where are you leaning? I don't really have any thoughts right now. I got nothing going through my brain.
Personal opinion, I love Zay Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
He's my, I guess, my personal target here.
Go for it. You don't need to
Yeah.
convince me on that one.
Yeah, take them. That's
Deal.
a smash pick. We love our rookie receivers here too. We were talking about it
Absolutely.
in other
Yep.
videos.
Yeah, there's Zay Flowers. Quentin Johnston went around before. Two great. Jordan Addison over here. JSN. Great values for huge potential. But yeah, back here, you know what? I talked myself back in. I'm looking at running backs. I think I just had star eyes for Zay Flowers that I just was feeling it. But I guess, quite honestly, just because I guess technically there's another starting running back here in a Kane. Right? Am I crazy?
No, I
Or
mean,
maybe I think that's going to be about as close to a three-way split as you can get.
For sure.
I think he and Wilson and Mostert are all going to get some love, especially because we've seen McDaniels give love to his former 49ers guys last year, and I think people forget they actually both did pretty well. Their seasons were kind of cut short to injury, but Wilson and Mostert actually had decent seasons, and I think they provide some good value really late on. I mean, look, he was RB25, which is a little wild. And when you Wilson is the other one there, Kyle.
Yeah.
But when you look at, I mean, he was RB30, and that's not great value. But I mean, their ADP is just super low right now. So if you're looking to just throw guys on the end of your bench, I mean, the two of them are great. So to me, I think that makes me worry about just Dolphins running backs in general. So
Yeah.
he's not really catching my eye personally. I know a guy we talk about all the time, Kyle, is Jerick McKinnon. I think that he is just such a good PPR value at this point, and he's the perfect kind of guy that when Connor gets banged up for a week or when Jones gets banged up for a week, you just throw him in there, and he's the kind of guy that could just magically get you 20 points out of nowhere, and you're super grateful for that. So that's where I'm leaning with this pick, but I want to hear what Mike thinks too.
No, I'm on board. I mean, McKinnon, you just pulled it up, RB20 last year, and I think obviously that was because of Clyde being non-existent there for a long time with that injury.
And
But
it's this bubble
yep,
right here. That was
right there.
when he
And
took over.
I honestly don't think that even with Clyde around this year, that he's going to be the featured back anymore. So, like Zach was saying, he was saying the three-way in Miami. I think this in Kansas City is definitely a two-way street, at least with a 1A, 1B. And I think out of all the running backs on the board there, that's definitely going to be my pick.
He also kind of falls right in the middle of this next group here, Kyle, of this next ADP group. So I don't think he would make it back to us. So I think
for sure
if he's our guy, I think we got to take our shot on him.
Yeah, I think we take him. And to add on to your point, Mike, Isaiah Pacheco was taken 3 rounds prior. I think it's going to be kind of a mix-em of the two of them. I mean, but we saw it in the playoffs where it was McKinnon as the receiving back and Pacheco was the rusher, where they both had involvement. And I don't see why they would stray away from that, considering they just won the Super Bowl with it. So why mess with that formula again?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, McKinnon's in PPR, a fantastic late round draft. Not even a dart throw.
Yeah, definitely the pass catching back. I didn't even mention Pacheco. I totally forgot, but just in terms of pass catching, yeah, I'm in 100% agreement there.
All right, back here with our final two picks at the 11-12 turn. Oh boy, what do we think here? We've got. I think we're staying away from tight end and quarterback, unless
Mhm.
either one of you desperately wants to draft a QB or tight end too.
Not necessarily.
Does anybody, I guess, wide receiver or running back way stand out to you? In the wide receiver room, for me, I'll just list a few guys that I'm interested in. Nico Collins could very well be the wide receiver one in Houston.
That's a great
I'll say
name.
his name, and I mean, Robert Woods all the way is invisible on the draft board, is also very still much
Mm-hmm.
in the running and being relevant. Zay Jones getting a little hype in training camp. I love to see it. Last year was the wide receiver 26. We drafted Trevor Lawrence already. Zay Jones could very well still have a role in this Jaguars offense with the addition of Ridley. And then Michael Gallup, possibly still the Dallas wide receiver too. Um, even with Cooks there, I think he still has that relationship and rapport with Dak. But would love to hear your guys' thoughts on those guys or any other, but anybody else.
Uh, just to throw out one name here that I don't think gets talked about very much across fantasy football. Period. He's literally the SpongeBob meme of all reliable. Tyler Boyd. I mean,
Yeah,
he's year in and year out. Like he's the least sexy fantasy player of all time. But if you need to throw someone in your lineup, if you got buys going or whatever, I mean, he's a shoe in to get you 10 points in a game. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be 4 catches for 40 yards or, 45 yards, whatever it is. I know that doesn't add up to 10, but that's what Tyler Boyd does. He's not going to get you 30 points in a game. He's not going to get you, and he doesn't bust hardly ever. You never really get a zero out of him either, but he's, I think, the kind of guy that you'd like to throw on your bench later on in a draft like this, just because it's not going to be pretty, but he's going to get you points and he's not going to lose you a week.
Yeah. No, that's all you need really is you're looking at this guy at this point for guys that are fillers that are going to help you maintain your record throughout the fantasy season, patch up the injuries, stuff like that. And why not? I mean, you look at the team as well. The past 2 years, you've had injuries to either Jamar or T. Higgins in either
Mm-hmm.
year. So, I mean, he's going to see an increase in volume, even if it's a little bit, and it won't be a bad flex opportunity at all. So, um, yeah, I was liking Boyd there. And we did talk about this in previous videos as well, Kyle. Just that we love the rookie receivers, not to be scared of them. So, like guys like Jonathan Mingo are on the list there. Even second year dudes, Romeo Dowds. And then if you go down a little bit, you also got the rookie Jalen Hyatt, I believe is how you pronounce it,
Yep.
from the Giants. The Giants, that it's a little bit more tricky over there because they really have how many receivers that are all kind of the same kind of dudes. And
All slots.
yeah, Sterling Shepard. Uh, who am I forgetting? There's so
They
many guys there.
Paris Campbell. They signed Cole Beasley. I
Harris
think
Campbell, Cole Beasley, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Wandale Robinson. You know, the list goes on. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Isaiah
Jason
Hodgins, who was
Crowder.
the hero last year. So, like, yeah, Giants receivers, I mean, good luck trying to take that one. For all we know, Sterling Shepard could see 100 targets this year and be the guy, but that's not something I'm going to gamble with. But yeah, I like Tyler Boyd. I like maybe a shot in the dark with Mingo. But here is really where you are taking a shot in the dark. And I even like Nico Collins like Kyle mentioned as well. I'd be okay with taking any
We
one of
were
the
auto picked.
receivers.
Yeah, I think we've all dropped some names. So Kyle, let's just default to you. Who do you want to take with this pick? You don't need to make either of us happy. Who are you
Take it
feeling here?
away, Kyle.
Nico Collins.
Okay,
Love it.
I'm happy with that. And then for our last pick here, what do we think? And I mean, I know that we talked about receiver a lot, and I think that's kind of where the value lies right now. But I don't think another running back would necessarily hurt our team composition. We're looking at 6 receivers to only 3 running backs, and especially since we waited on running back a little bit, I think we could maybe use another guy just to kind of bolster our core a little bit here. 2 names that kind of stand out to me. The first is Devin Singletary. I think Houston intentionally brought him in to maybe take some of the burden off of Dameon Pierce. Excuse my French, they ran the shit out of the ball with Dameon Pierce last year, like to the tune of 25, 30 carries a game. But I think we could see Singletary take over a bigger percentage than I think people want to admit. And the other guy is Kendre Miller, the rookie for the New Orleans Saints. I think if we see Alvin Kamara have to miss time, Jamal Williams is more than capable of carrying a full workload. But I think in that situation, we're going to see Kendre Miller pick up a bunch of meaningful snaps as well. So, like we're talking about, end of the bench, these are the kind of guys you want to swing for upside on. And I think that those 2 guys provide a pretty good amount.
Yeah, I agree as well. I like Kendre Miller too, just because I don't think Jamal Williams is going to be the guy that is going to be a 3-down back at all. So I think he'd step it right in and maybe a 50-50 there. I also love Singletary too, like you mentioned. Devin Singletary was an absolute animal as a running back for Buffalo. He just never saw the volume to actually give you fantasy value.
Yeah.
The poor guy, and they just never ran the ball. But yeah, a lot of interesting names on this list. I'm going to point out one guy that I am a little bit higher on just because of some camp news, to be honest, and that's Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
I'm pretty high on him just because I'm not the biggest fan of, let's say, Travis Etienne. So I don't really love Etienne in that offense, and I think he could provide a spark if anything were to happen. And step into a really good offense compared to all of the other running backs that we're looking at on this list are really on some bad football teams. And I tend to stay away if I can from running backs on bad football teams. It just never tends to really go the right direction unless you're CMC for all those years. But yeah, I would probably go Tank. Like Zach said, this is kind of just a shot in the dark with these running backs here. There's nothing special about any of them really, but I kind of like Tank just for the position he's in, being the RB2, that he could potentially step right in if something were to happen and be a guy on a good football team seeing a lot of volume.
I like
Mike,
Tank as well.
You've sold me. Tank it is for our
Nice.
final pick.
Nice.
And there
What
it
a
is.
team. What a team, man.
As the draft finishes, 12 rounds, 3 wide receivers start, and this looks incredible. It's crazy to think that Deontay is our wide receiver 4 and our flex. I think that's incredible value.
Yeah.
And that our flex could even be Zay Flowers. Wow. Diggs, Brown, and Debo. That is a beautiful start.
That's a power 3 right there. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Other than maybe somebody that went quarterback in the first 3 picks, I can't see anybody matching that firepower of those top 3. Not in terms of points, maybe consistency with the running back picks in the middle there and stuff like that, but definitely not points. So, oof. And to stack a quarterback tight end, man, that's looking like a playoff team right there. Barring injuries, but
That's a beautiful squad.
We will be affectionately known as the Team 12 Jaguars since we have 3 of them on our team.
The 3 Jaguars.
I
Hey,
am
may as well
okay with
do it
that.
on good football teams, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
I want to bring up one point quick, Kyle.
You got it.
In the first few rounds here, so I think without a doubt we all love that start. I don't think anybody could hate that start, to be honest. What we have there, what would make you change from that? So we kind of based off this draft where we saw Barkley, Robinson, and Taylor go. And I had even mentioned, like, say you didn't see those running backs go, say if Diggs went instead of, let's say, Jonathan Taylor, with everything that's going on with him. Say A.J. Brown wasn't there either. If you had those running backs there, would the draft look different, and kind of how would you approach it if everything does go to ADP this year, which is like wide receiver heavy? How would you approach it different, you think?
I guess the one thing that would have changed it big time is if any one of Diggs or Brown weren't there, I probably would have gone Chubb. Whether it be Diggs Chubb or Brown Chubb.
Right.
I think the duo of Diggs and Brown was just too clean for me. And maybe Devontae Adams. I just think I have the two of them a bit above. But then Chubb could be a top 5 running back this year as well. I think that's, for me, probably the biggest one. If it weren't Diggs and Brown, it probably would have looked a little bit differently, whether it's I'm taking Chubb or maybe even Lamb. But the fact that it was the two of them just kind of sweetened the deal and made it look a lot more appealing.
Yeah, no, I'd agree too. I don't think much would have changed there, but if those wide receivers were gone, I'm probably going to take one of the running backs at that point, since it would be so little. And you may even see, like, I believe Chubb would be there, but even if he's not, like, still Derrick Henry wouldn't be the worst pick at all. So yeah, I would love to go 1-1 if that wasn't a possibility, what we did here. But what we did here, gentlemen, oof, send me the money. Send me the
I,
money.
I I think the late round pick is a really hard spot to go running back. I think it's doable, but I don't think you're going to be necessarily as happy as you are with this team if you do start running back. When you're looking at Debo as potentially your first wide receiver, or maybe if Metcalf slides, that's your first receiver. I think that kind of high variance receiving core is really going to lead to some issues throughout the season. So to me, I think that your best options are to go hero RB and go with a guy like Saquon, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Chubb, those guys, and then fill out receivers afterwards, or to go just receiver heavy like we did here. So I think those are the two best strategies to kind of just sum this up for the later round picks in your fantasy draft.
Yeah. And take a look at it as well. That second, third round there is being dominated by running backs. So if you can get them early like that and just solidify 2 top 10s and even Debo that could crack the top 15 easily with a healthy season, I mean, that's a great team right there.
Yep.
Love it.
It's a fantastic squad. All right. That being said, I just turned myself off. Thank you for tuning in. Before we head out, I do want to say, as part of me just toying around with a bunch of stuff, we've added a fun little, I guess, like draft order randomizer tool to our website.
Yes, sir.
It's nothing special. I say that, but both Zach and Mike love it.
I love it.
Absolutely.
But basically, it's if you just need help just figuring out your draft order. It's basically, if you go to firstseedsports.com, it's you enter your league mates' names, hit randomize, or randomize 3 times, and it'll spit out a randomized list. But underneath that, it also lists out a bunch of other ways that you can decide your draft order. If you are struggling to figure out how to do that still, it's August, and your league mates are probably itching to find out where they're drafting at. So just something to look at. And then, as always, use code FIRSTSEED on Underdog. First deposit match up to $100. It's basically, you just use the code on your first deposit, put in 100, you get another extra 100 to play around with. Pretty cool.
Join us in those weekly winners. I'm
The
sure
weekly
that
winners,
we all have a few. So.
incredible draft thing that they've got going on right now. It's basically a best ball draft that you draft for season long, but every week they are granting a winner. and saying like, oh, you win $10,000 because you had the highest scoring team that you drafted in August. It's pretty cool. So check it out. Use code FIRSTSEED and meet us in there. And Zach, Mike, it's a pleasure drafting with you.
As always.
Always a good time.
Next week.
Next week sounds good. It's crunch time, man. It's crunch time. Hopefully we get some Dalvin Cook news. Make the board solidified next week.
Hopefully.
See.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.